Our imagination this morning as John goes through speech. He'll be speaking from the Humorously Speaking Manual, project number 1, warm up your audience. His objectives are to prepare a speech that opens with a humorous story. Use your imagination, John. Personalize the story, and I know John has lots of personal stories. Deliver the story smoothly and effectively, and his time is 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Craig. When a recruiter asked John to come give a speech to a school in Houma, Louisiana, John said yes. When the Army recruiter asked John how much he would charge for doing this, John paused and said, "I'll get back to you on that." This was the beginning of what has turned into a 21-year speaking profession. Today, John is going to give us a few tips to consider when going from public to professional speaker. His speech is entitled From Free to Fee. Fellow Toastmasters, please welcome professional speaker and change management expert, John Register.
You know, I never imagined I would be a professional speaker. When I was at Hawthorne Junior High School, I had to do a speech. And I had prepared the night before. And my father told me, because I don't remember this, that I went out the door kicking and screaming because I was too terrified to do that speech. I still get terrified before I give a presentation. But I think that what's happened is that the more that I prepared, the more comfortable I get as I continue on. But there are a lot of individuals that ask me along my journey, how did you get into this? How did you start this profession? And that story down in Houma, Louisiana really was the impetus. I was working for the Total Army Involvement and Recruiting for the United States Army. I had a group of athletes, and I would be the host for those athletes and the MC of the program. We would go into the high schools, and I would introduce each one of the athletes with a story, or a poem, or a humorous quip, or I would show my leg. For those that are not laughing, I have an artificial leg. So. I got back home to Virginia from Louisiana, and the recruiter called me up and said, "Hey John, the principal, they really want you to come back down here and share a more expanded story with the kids, because the kids can't stop talking about this African-American guy with one leg." And he asked me how much I charged to do that. And I quickly said, charge? I never thought that anyone could charge money, especially for me, who I have nothing to share. And I told him I would get back to him on that. And that really began this journey. And I gave him a number, and he actually accepted the number, and I was blown away by that, too. So the things I want to share with you today is you can turn any one of your stories into a story that has monetary value to it. And I'm going to give you 3 things that I think, 3 of my opinions, of what I think we need to do if you want to shift from kind of a free speech into a fee speech. The first thing is, I believe you have to have is a story. The story is the basis or the foundation of where you're going to take an audience. And we take that audience to a level that they can understand what the value of your story means in their life. Because when you think about it, no one really cares about my story. They care about how my story actually impacts them. How can they apply it in their life? The greatest stories are ones that have depth to them. So we think about a time in our life that when we think about a time in our life when something went wrong. And the reason we think about that is because it gives discord, and it gives a greater depth to our story. It can also be a humorous story, but in the speaking profession, most people say, if you make somebody cry, that's gonna be golden for you, right? So, think about that. Think about the story that made you cry. What did you learn from that story, your personal point for that story? Once you learn your personal point, how does that become universal to another person? How can we tie that in? The second thing is now you gotta market it. So for me, marketing is going to all of my friends, my family, to other people I've spoken with, and seeing how does this story now resonate with them. In an environment where I am giving a speech, maybe it's in a Toastmasters or maybe it's in for a community organization, I'm not looking for a standing ovation. I'm looking for somebody to come up to me afterwards and say, hey John, that story's amazing. Could you come speak to my group on that? When you get that, you know you've now not only gone deep with your story, but the value is there for you to actually ask for some cash. So that's the marketing piece. The final piece of marketing is once you're doing that, and you're in an environment, have some type of an evaluation so you're getting feedback. And in that evaluation, ask them, I would love to use Beata for my next speech. Or after, on the bottom, I can't use Beata right now, but I know of another organization that can use her. And that becomes your lead sheet, your lead capture sheet. The final thing is you gotta ask for the cash. And that's tough. It's really tough. Because that goes to your value that you think versus the value that they think, and this gap that exists between. And does my story really have a cash value to it? Or a value of exchange? It doesn't necessarily have to be cash. You can trade or you can barter for something if they can't meet your fee structure. I usually give a range of from X to 2X. That way I have a room to play with inside of the person who's actually requesting. But I find speakers do not ask for the cash because they don't feel that they are connected enough to their story. And because they're not as connected to the story, they don't think they have that value to actually accept and ask for it. So they want other people to do it for them. They'll pay somebody else to go out and ask for that because we don't feel as if we're worthy of that. So those three things I think are the most critical for going from free to fee. So you have the personal story, you then market that story, and then from that you ask for the cash.